Hey guys, so lesson 2, stocks and risks. With this, we're continuing our probability, and we're hoping that when you invest in the stock market that the probability will be in your favor and that you'll be able to have some growth and make a little money. But you know, there are times when there is stocks performing below average and you lose money. And so we're kind of just going through that process of, well, what does that look like when we work it out in a problem? So here we go. Frankenstein will be a senior in high school. To celebrate his graduation, his grandmother gave him a sizable amount of money. Since he has earned a scholarship for college, Frankenstein decided to investigate investing the money into stocks. All right, so then you see this information where he has met with a consultant or a financial advisor to figure out high or low capital stocks as well as domestic or international stocks. So high stocks would be large companies, low stocks or low capital stock is smaller companies. Domestic would be, in this case, talking about the United States. International would be any outside the United States. So here we go. When we look at the information, some of it is straightforward in terms of like you can just see it delivered to you, like high capital stocks, there's 250 of them. International, there's 400, so, or excuse me, 40. So what that means is there's 290 total. So 290, let me switch so it's a little bit easier to see. There you go, 290. High capital stock with below average showing. When we look at those, we have 40 and 6 for our high cap below average. That's 46. 210 would be our total here, and then 15 and 4 would be 19. All right, so that's just working our way across this way to get our totals. All right, so 290, 46, 210, and 19. And then if we want to figure out what about high capital stocks that you put together, so high capital stocks that are together, those would be your 290 as well as your 46. And so if we're saying, well, what are just the domestic stocks? So let's go, I'll just represent that with a D for domestic high capital. All right, so domestic high capital, you would take your give us the high capital stock to figure out domestic as well as basically make sure we don't have overlap. All right, so we have 250 with our high capital stocks, and then if we're saying the number of high capital stocks for domestic with below average showing, so we can take our 250 minus 40, and that gives us 210 domestic and high capital stocks. Then we can do the same general concept here. We got our low capital stock. So with our low capital stock of 200, 15 of them with below average showing, that means that we would have 185 domestic low cap. All right, so that gives us 185 there. So all that information would give us our total. So let's see, let's get our total here. We got 40 high capital, 10 low capital. So we got 50 total stocks there. 250 high capital, 200 low capital. So there's 450 total stock. And the high cap and the low capital below average, those are included. It's just giving us how they're doing with what they invested in. All right, so we're going to look at that as a Venn diagram. And it looks a little different, just your basic Venn diagram, because we've got a third bit of information here. So with that third bit of information, we are going to take all the numbers that we found. And so we're going to call this is high capital. This is domestic. Down here is below average showing stocks. All right, so we've got our 210 and our 40. And those numbers come from our high capital that we subtracted a minute ago, and we said 210 plus these 40 would give us our total of 250. So that's where we get those two numbers from. Domestic by themselves, we just said that was 185, so we can write that here. So our domestic, that falls into the low cap. We got 15 for our low cap and domestic, so that would go right here because those are all falling under the domestic category. And then our high cap stock, we have 210 and 40, and then we got 34 over here because we subtract the 40 and the 6 to get our 34. So we got 34 and 6, so that gives us our 40. And then that means the only thing left down here is our below average, our only below average, which would be 4 total. All right, so to me that's okay as far as the visual goes, but so that covers our Venn diagram, but the tree diagram just looks way better when it comes to like finding the information to solve, but you do have to work through a little bit to get your percentages. So like our All-American Breakfast one, your percentages were just given. In this one for the tree diagram, you're gonna have to divide to get those percentages. So we start with our domestic and our international because those are the options of stock that they had to purchase right away. And all of this is out of the 500 total stock options. So if we take the 450 domestic divided by the 500, that's going to give us 0.90. And if we take the 50 divided by the 500, then that gives us 0.10. All right, so those two are going to be where we start, and then we'll split up from there to go high cap. So we're going to have high capital and low capital, high capital and low capital. And from there, we will look at the Venn diagram and see, all right, right here is my domestic. And when I'm dealing with the domestic, I want to know the high cap. So the two that are in high cap would be 210 and 40. So that gives me 250. So that is out of the 450 total domestic stocks. So that's 250 divided by 450. So that's going to be 0.56. Same general concept, it's just we're talking about low capital stock. So domestic, we said that we have 185 and 15 would be our low caps. And that would give us 200 out of 450. So we divide that, 200 divided by 450, and that's going to be 0.44. We do the same general concept with our international stock. So we're going to go back up, and we see on our chart that international stock, we have 40, that would be the high cap international stock, and 10 that's low cap. So we would do, that's 50 total. So we have 40 out of 50, and then we have 10 out of 50. So our high cap is going to be 0.80, and our low cap would be 0.20. Then we'll branch off from there, and we're going to see what's above average and below average. So for our domestic high capital stocks performing average or above average, there's 210 of those. So we can get that from the Venn diagram right here, or we can get that from the chart where we see that 40 of them are showing below average. So 250 minus 40 leaves us with 210. And then same general concept, except this one's straightforward. They tell us that 40 are below average, and that's out of 250 as well. So when we divide those, we would round up and get 0.08 that are going to be below average. Oh, excuse me. This is 0.08 when we get there in just a second. This is 0.16, and in turn, it's out of 100%, so this would be 0.84 or 84%. And if this one's 0.08 for our domestic low cap stocks that are below average at 0.08, then the low cap stocks that are above average or average would be 0.92. Then we'll do the same general concept here with our international as far as our high capital and our low capital stocks. So for those, we are going to take our same bit of information. We're going to branch out. Let's get maybe a different color here. All right, so now we would have our above average and our below average. And so with that information, I'm going to go back up to the chart and see that our international stocks, when we're dealing with high cap, is right here. So with our high cap, we have 6, and there's 40 total. So that means that 34 of them are doing well or at or above average. So 34 out of 40, and 34 out of 40 is going to give us 0.85, and then they tell us 6 are below, so we do 6 out of the 40, and that would be our other amount to give us 100, so 0.15, and then we have 6 out of 10 and 4 out of 10, so we kind of ran out of room, but that's 0.60 and 0.40. That's our international low cap stocks that are limited in the number, but you can see that we've got 10 here. 4 of them are below average, but 6 are doing well. So once we have all of that, I know it's a lot of steps, I get that, but once we have it all, then the questions become. So the high cap domestic stock, we can refer to our chart and say we have domestic high cap, and then it's saying, well, what's performed above average? Well, we already said that, 210 out of 250. And you can get that from the chart as well, but we did all the hard work, so you might as well use the tree chart there. So we got 210 out of 500 in this case, because now it's saying out of all of the stock, not just the total. So we got 0.42 or 42%. Or another way to look at that, if you're like, well, why don't we just do this in the first place? I understand, but you look at the chart and you could see, all right, well, if 40 are your total domestic stocks that are below average, that means that we would have 210 domestic high cap stocks. So we said that at the beginning, so 210 out of all of them, out of all 500, would give us our total that we would have. So what type of stock would you suggest that they invest if they want to limit the risk? Well, I would look at, well, what's going to be the highest value, or kind of bang for the buck here. And so we're seeing domestic high caps, the 84% of those are doing above average, which is awesome. 92% of your domestic low caps are doing really well. Internationally, you've got some that are doing okay, with your high caps doing pretty good. But so those would be your 3 highest values, and you can kind of share why. But I would say that the smallest likelihood of being below average, or you could say the highest likelihood of doing well, would be your domestic low cap stocks according to this. So you can kind of share your own opinion on, but it should probably be one of those 3 options. So I would say that your low capital domestic stocks, so that they have the highest probability of, there you go, of being above average, or I guess we could say being average or above, because they're not below average. So that would be my rationale, but you could probably justify the other 3. All right, then the last question is contrast the performance of international and domestic stocks. So this is where you take all of the international and all the domestic stock details that we just had, and you're trying to put them all. So just to save a little scrolling back and forth, I just went in and I got all of our numbers from our tree chart. So I just started here and went with our 0.90, and then worked over to our 0.56, and then worked over to the 0.84. So I just got all of our numbers from the domestic top part of the tree and then the domestic bottom part of the tree. So I just wrote all those out because we're going to multiply all those, and when we multiply them, we would get 0.42. So multiply those 3 numbers straight across, and we get 0.42. Same thing, multiply these 3 numbers, we get 0.36. And what you do is you add those 2 up. All right, so we add them up, and that would give us a total of 0.78, or 78% as far as the international and domestic comparison of the market average. And then same thing, I just went up and I got the 10, 80, 85 off of the international high cap that was above average and below average, and you multiply those 3 and you get 0.068 and 0.012. So we add those up and we would get 0.08, or 8% of the market. All right, bottom part, write 3 facts that help Frankenstein decide in which type of stock to invest. That's where you can use your Venn or tree diagram to tell what would